SFJ 4x4 Studios presents
in my oversized four-wheel drive Jeep.
a Jeep podcast starring industry experts.
Pure monosity.
What? Say that again.
With mad scientist Scott Brown,
Use my drill press as a sort of lathe.
our host Neil Simpson,
If one light goes out, they all go out.
filled with shenanigans.
We are really professional with Jeeps.
This is I Speak Jeep.
What do you mean? We have got nothing.
Is it-
What's our producer
you're
doing
good.
this morning?
You're good. You're trying to change stuff last minute.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast presented by SFJ4x4.com. And if you're wondering what's going on, per the usual, we're
Packing 15 things of life into 2 seconds.
2 seconds,
Yes.
and I cannot hear myself in my headphones.
You're
so
fine.
if I'm yelling into the mic, folks, you're gonna know why,
You're fine.
right?
I don't know how you can't hear yourself.
I
You're-
cannot hear myself. There's nobody home in my headphones, so I'm
plugged
just gonna
in?
keep yelling into the mic, and it's going to be perfectly fine.
Can you hear me and Scott?
I can hear you guys wonderfully.
How
But I sound like I'm shouting through a tunnel. I don't know. So I mean, whatever. I can see the things on the production side. I know it's working.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Yeah.
I don't what.
Good morning, Darla. Good
doesn't
morning,
matter.
Joe.
It doesn't
And good
matter.
morning, Roy.
Oh my gracious. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
As I mentioned, my name is Neil, and I am joined in studio.
Are you sure?
I am sure.
I don't think.
am
I don't
sure.
think he's sure.
I think Jeffrey's on the strug bus this morning. I think he's.
Because you're trying to change everything last second. I don't know. It's. I have no volume. I have this.
That's true.
We're
Those are all
good.
true.
All
We're
true
good.
statements.
Those are all true statements.
Yes.
That is accurate.
We didn't do our normal checks and balances because you walked in as we're getting ready to
walked
go
in,
live.
sat down, fussed a little bit about school orientation, and away we go. I just hit the key
Yeah.
and hit the gas.
Yes.
That's
It was not
literally
a,
what we did.
not a 42 RLE.
No.
You can't do that in TJs.
No.
Automatic TJs don't let you do that.
03
Folks.
and up. You can't do that. Shouldn't
Can't
do
do
that.
it. Should not do it.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll touch on that just a smidgy bit, right? Smidgy bit in today will be restorative processes, right?
Yes.
And I want to say this as we get going, even as we do our introductions, you're going to want to hang in there, folks, because we're going to be talking about restoring Jeeps, and not the idea of we talked about like rebuilding a TJ and maybe investing in a Cherokee. We talked about some of that investing in your Jeep about 6 weeks ago. But we're actually going to be talking about restorative processes. And then for our
I'm going to interrupt because these comments are gold already.
yes,
Just real quick. Daddy Jeep saying good morning. Ken saying good morning.
morning.
Darla made a comment about the awesome threesome, and Daddy Jeep replies, Three Stooges, maybe. He's correct. And then Joe says, on Saturday, my Jeep came back, and the power came back. He was without power from those storms
Yes.
for a couple days. So he was terrified his ex would also come back.
I kept expecting Linda to have to throw down in the front yard, that the Amish would make a circle like when you were in high school all over again, and the high schoolers. Folks who are listening in, Joe and Linda live in the Amish frontier of Ohio,
Yes.
and their Jeep travels back and forth through to the southwest and Colorado to southwest
We'll be
frequently.
going there soon.
Hopefully we'll be going there very soon. They have two. They have 4xe, and then they have
Yeah, they have a backup Jeep,
and they
as you should.
as you should, right?
Yeah.
And then they have that tank green one. Anyways, that 15, just like yours.
Yep.
And I saw that post that Joe made, and I kept expecting like the Amish to be out there with pitchforks and like chanting while Linda has to wrestle the ex, subdue Joe's ex, since
I'm surprised he didn't stage a video like that anyways and just send it
that
to
would
him.
have been
That's right.
fantastic. Fantastic. But folks, you're going to want to hold in there. We're going to be talking about restorative processes, right? We, at this point in time, have a national, pushing international reputation, and that's due in part because of our international listeners, and we thank you for that, for our restorative processes, which, if you don't know, and all the credit for oversight goes to Scott on that one. And I'm gonna divulge some secrets about when Scott and I were younger.
Well, we're going to start with introducing Scott and
Well,
I.
not yet. And then you're going to want to hold
Not
in
yet.
for product, our product review. which is in studio with us. It's a large cardboard box that Scott is Vanna White handing towards things.
You're going to want to know what the cardboard
You're
box
going to want
is.
to know what's in that cardboard box. You're going to want to know.
Maybe we might have to give a peek. Maybe.
I don't know. I'd probably get beat up trying to open it out of the box, but
That's
And,
true.
and if you
we'll
are
let people
listening,
know.
if you are listening live on Facebook right now, there is a discussion going on who is Larry, Curly, or Mo.
Oh, boy.
So
Oh, dear.
if you want to chime in on that discussion, get in the chat room.
Also, if you're listening to us at a later date, you should join us Mondays at 10:19 a.m. and almost every Monday, pending some of the bigger holidays. So we will be off for Labor Day.
Yep.
It's valuable to know that will be next Monday. So no podcast next Monday, folks.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
Maybe we could put some, special content together this week
Special
just for the Patreon.
content. Yes. And obviously you can join and support our Patreon. So, or our Patreon group. You get access to sneak peek, behind the scenes, smoky burnouts and limousines,
boy.
sound clips from the American Hustle, and obviously a Discord where there's all types of fun conversations going on at any given time. We appreciate those people's direct support of this podcast. That is wonderful.
And I believe that I'm going to be able to put a teaser up for our Patreons from the fireworks display from this weekend as
Oh,
well.
yes, that's right. That's right. And we wish you success with that, right? And no injuries. But we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, who are you? Who are you, mystery voice?
So I'm Jeff Shermani, the producer of the show.
Shiramonte.
The Italian stallion.
Lots of mafia discussions with my family ties coming up because of the last of the mafia in Erie passed away recently.
Yeah,
so
big
that's
deal, apparently.
big news, and finding out family history and ties to that was interesting over the past week. So
Yeah, that's super cool stuff. And obviously, and you bring it up, but it's always important to know there's a book written about, or in part, with your uncle, right?
yeah, it's specifically about my uncle.
It is about your uncle.
The murder of my uncle. He was the biggest bookkeeper in northwestern Pennsylvania, the history of northwestern Pennsylvania.
Folks who are listening in, right, and who are engaged with SFJ 4x4 now, and I'm going to take this moment to get on my soapbox, right, and talk about the fact that the SFJ 4x4 difference is very real, and it's not even just like once you walk in the door and you become one of our customers and our process, which we'll outline
Once
a
you're
little bit.
in the family.
But once you're in the family, and I think our
Jeep Mafia.
listeners, I think our customers who are in regularly understand the reality of this situation. This cast of characters is real. Like the garbage the hot garbage that I am that actually happens to me on a regular basis. The stuff that I'm doing, it's not the stuff that then
This is not an act, people.
This is not an act. This
We
cast
can't
of
make up
characters,
the stuff that happens to us on
this
the regular.
cast of characters that you meet along the way with the Italian stallion and the mad scientist, these are real human beings. This is reality TV and voice at its finest, right? So I love it.
I really do accidentally do a lot of stuff.
Yes, I really do accidentally
Which
do
we
a
have
lot
an
of
update
stuff.
on that.
Oh,
Oh,
my
boy.
gosh. And Jeffrey and his direct mafia connections, the reality of this is so authentic. It's amazing. All right, mad scientist, and you are
I am Scott Brown, the mad scientist.
Doc
Madison is- So should we go right into updates?
You know what? Well, Jeff's brother had a suggestion for you the other day,
Oh.
and it was
Let me pull up the text that he
Oh,
sent.
no.
He randomly he listened in, got caught up on some episodes, and sent me a text immediately. And where is his text message? Give me one sec.
This is going to drive me to eat a cookie.
His text verbatim. I recently was catching up on podcasts, and I have two thoughts. Scott can be CHO, Chief Hat Officer, because he does so many different jobs.
real quick, and that just as a testament for our listeners. If you're not in on that joke, that's because oftentimes when Scott does his introductions, he'll be janitorial services or
That's true.
wiring connector finder
Yes.
or
Exhaust maker.
exhaust
today.
maker today, and or keeper of keys from
Yes.
who knows, my wife dropped something off and has
Yes.
bestowed
Plant
responsibility.
buyer.
Plant buyer
Yeah.
one
Yes.
morning. So yes,
Uh,
CHO, Chief Hat Officer.
And then he goes, you could be CRP, Chief of Replacement Parts, because you keep having surgeries.
That's Jeffrey. Jeffrey is the CRP, Chief of Replacement Parts. And if you don't know, the guys have given me this term of
CBO of External Affairs.
CBO of External Affairs. And if you don't know, then you're going to have to go back and find in some podcasts or listen to the American Hustle. You're going to have to figure out what CBO of External Affairs means.
Yes.
All right, so What is the update you were saying?
So I might have accidentally got
There's
a cat.
cookies in the studio. Did you know that?
There is.
There is. You found them?
There are
Dang it.
grandma cookies in the studio.
Can you pass them over? Because I actually want one.
I really do. Too.
I didn't. I was waiting because I didn't know that you knew they were there.
I knew they were there, and I thought,
I figured because I opened the tin this morning. I'm like, oh, those are a little lower.
yeah. Yeah, I
Lucky
came
you
in
have any
Saturday.
at all.
Thanks to Chip and Aaron, and we just turned out Phoebe over the weekend, and obviously thanks to you guys for making that happen. And of course, if you are not watching in, we have the official grandma tin that we all grew up with in studio. Thanks to Jeffrey for bringing that in originally.
I gave Jeff permission to take the sewing supplies out, and put the cookies in.
I think that was perfect.
It was literally they brought this giant Tupperware tin and they're like, or Tupperware container full of cookies.
Yeah.
And they're like, you can just hang on to the container until the next time we come back. And I'm
Yeah.
like, hold on. I wonder if they'll fit in this container. So Scott, if they don't, I'm up for the challenge.
Let's eat what don't fit.
Eat what doesn't fit. That was the most spectacular thing because, and I will take this moment because obviously I interrupted you on purpose per the usual.
Yep. I'll just eat my cookie.
I know,
Listen.
eat your cookie and enjoy your life. I came
They're
in
so
on
good.
Saturday because I knew that Chip and Aaron were bringing these delicious home-baked cookies for us, which, of course, all of our long-term customers know the quickest way to our hearts is through our stomach.
100%.
And so they're bringing these homemade snickerdoodle cookies to us. And while Chip expected me to rappel from the rafters like the Phantom of the Opera, I was unable to. But I came in looking for the cookies later in the day. And I thought, oh, those dirty dogs, they hid them from me, right? They hid them from me.
That's all true
And
statements.
I purposely, I wasn't going to give you the satisfaction of the fact that I knew that you hid them from me and I was frustrated with you for hiding said cookies. I wasn't going to message you Saturday night, be like, where the heck are my cookies at? So
I would have
left it
said,
be.
wouldn't you like to know?
I know you would have. I know, because you wouldn't have told me. I wouldn't have been revealed anything. It would have been like they're in the state of Ohio. That's what I would have got a text message back or
That would have been Scott's response for
right?
sure.
So that would have been Scott's. Jeff's would have been like, well, you should have been here on Saturday for Chip, and then you would have got cookies.
They were good cookies.
They were good cookies. Fortunately, because kind of I'm here 1,000 times over the weekend. My son found them because he's 10 and he's into everything.
Oh, yes.
And he's like, why is the tin so heavy? And I was like, light bulb. I know what's in the grandma tin.
Yeah.
I
Darn
know
it,
what's in
Leo.
there. Here, I don't know if
It
we
would have
wanna
been
put that
Leo,
away.
though. Just the.
Oh yeah.
Would have never found him without
No,
Leo.
I wouldn't have found it without Leo.
That's
I
great.
wouldn't have found it.
I
All right.
almost left the tin where it was just so you wouldn't know, but I'm like, no, I'll move it back to the studio and he'll think it's for decoration purpose.
I did. I did. Thank you, Leo, for finding it. Oh my goodness. All
Yes.
right.
Hopefully you shared when you.
Oh
Found
my
it.
God. Yeah. Heck, that's why it's lighter.
They're really good cookies.
They're so good.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I might have accidentally got another cat over the weekend.
I think everybody knew you got that cat before you even
yeah,
knew.
before I knew I got a cat.
I knew that cat was coming home.
I mean, when I was sort of semi-caring for the cat, and everybody knew I had a cat before I knew I had a cat.
I was caring for the cat. and
I
everything.
went home Saturday and told Kristen that it sounds like they're going to adopt the cat. She's like, I knew that the second Amy put it up on Facebook. I'm like, yes, we all did.
Yeah, so this morning I had to not only get my children ready for school and the dog outside and fed the current cat, well, our previous cat, or however you want to.
Your previous cat. Oh, we're kicking it to the curb.
No,
We got a new one. We're replacing it.
the cat that was already residing in our house, and then I had to go out and care for a kitten because my wife and fellow coworkers found this kitten out behind her work. We had 2 big storms, and the poor thing was out in both of them. And of course, she sends me this sopping, wet, sad-looking, cute kitten, and she's like, "Look," I'm like, "Yep, it's a
Yeah.
kitten."
It's a kitten.
Yep. The
No,
par-
super cute kitten too.
well, she's super cute.
Scott's new best friend.
Her name is Luna now.
Luna. Oh, that's adorable.
She we're working with a cat rescue, thank goodness, because I paid the bill on the last rescue cat, and I know how that is. So we made a smarter choice this time.
Right,
and
Maddox and Friends Cat Rescue,
Yep,
which is a
highly
very,
recommended.
very reputable feline rescue
And
group.
if you don't have 2 cats or 3 or 4 or 5. Maybe you should go.
You're
get
adding
another
more
one.
cats, huh?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it sounds like Scott's getting more cats. Yeah.
No. I'm just saying that I know how that goes. And she was like justifying. My wife's like, well, so and so has 5 cats, and this one has 6 cats. I'm like, we're just kidding. If we're getting this one, we're having 2 cats.
Wait till she finds the brothers and sisters
No,
out there.
I already told her, sorry. We'll have to find homes for them. We'll just leave them in cardboard boxes on somebody's doorsteps. Not naming any names.
Oh, he
Not
motioned
ours.
For listeners,
Not
for our
ours.
listeners, he
I'll make sure-
motioned.
I'll make sure
to
you're
us.
not home.
So
Chris
know
will let
that
it in.
Scott,
No,
know
no.
that Scott is not recommending leaving these cats anywhere else except for specifically Jeffrey and my house.
Specifically
or
when they're
Greg.
not there.
Or Greg.
And when he's not there.
Greg's
No,
got
Greg will
11
just take it
animals.
in.
Oh.
He'll take it. He'll take it.
Kristen goes, no.
Folks, if you've ever met Greg, and I mean, so many of our customers
Yeah, you
have, our
gotta
lead
expect
performance.
him to be the cat person
He
is.
is the cat person.
Yes.
He loves animals. He animals and mechanical thinking or vehicles.
Yes.
He loves more than you, our listener, he is a human.
Yes.
Um,
There's many cat trees at his
I
house.
was gonna say he's here for the animals. That's the best thing.
But anyway, so that happened.
And I'm just gonna, my observation that I shared with you and for our listening and viewing audience, I want to make sure that I hammer home the idea that Amy posted this. Your wife Amy posted that she found this cat, and it was the most superficial.
Yeah.
Does anyone want a cat? She was going through the motions.
Yes.
And by that time they
She
had
had ulterior motives. I know it.
she totally had ulterior motives. And by that time she had already contacted Maddox and Friends.
Yes.
And they had said, hey, we'll pay for the fostering and the initialization of these
And the
animals.
very first thing out of my mouth was like, well, how are we going to pay for that?
Right, exactly, right?
'Cause
And
my last free cat was $1,000 cat.
no doubt. No
Yeah.
doubt. The free animals are always the most expensive.
Yep.
And your wife's post was like, does anybody want a free cat? You know, this lost kitten. It's so cute, and it's all paid for via Maddox and Friends Cat
Yeah.
Rescue. And I thought that is the
Not
equivalent.
only, not that. She specifically said, anyone want to foster the cat?
Foster,
Not take it
specific-
in.
right?
Foster it.
And that is the equivalent of us as automotive enthusiasts listing our favorite project vehicle online when your spouse gets in your ear and like, hey, we need to drum up some cash or some space or whatever, and you put it for 2 or 3 times more than it's really worth.
Yes.
And it's at least I put it. I'm trying to sell it. See, I'm trying to give the cat somebody
In
else.
Amy's defense, she's never done that to me once. So,
It was her turn.
So it's her turn to get a cat.
She
got
did say that her birthday was Friday. So, this is a good birthday present. as well.
Oh,
Well, happy early birthday.
Yeah, right. Happy early birthday to her. All right, so you're free kitten. Jeffrey, what do you got going on?
So as usual, I can't do a whole lot as I'm recovering. So I literally made Kristen help with the firework racks to finalize those for Labor Day weekend.
Yes.
And had her screwing together some of the racks that we were building, and then I fully fused one of the finale racks so that I just have to light it and walk away for the finale. I've got one more to fuse, but I'll do that on site so I can tie them together so it just plays nice, and then a cake that goes with that. So
How cool.
So
How
it should be
cool.
a pretty good show. We've got it's like 130 firework shots that'll blow up in the air. So it'll be a pretty good one out over the ponds. Nice fun celebration.
Yeah. I look forward to it. I don't know that I'm going to be able to make it or not. I'm not exactly certain at any point in time what's going on in the
You don't know
Simpson
what tomorrow's
household.
going to happen?
I don't know what happens tomorrow necessarily. But I think that for our Patreon specifically, that a little bit of footage or some behind the scenes with your family, your family function will be very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to try to get some of the footage of us actually assembling and putting it together the way the setup is so they can see where they're going to launch from if they're on our Patreon. So
Yeah, how cool. Yeah, and as far as the Simpson household, per the usual, we were just kind of all over the world this weekend. So did work on the new house build. We had, parties. We worked on vehicles. Obviously, big shout out and thank you to everybody who's enjoying the Buy My Truck reel and who's sharing that and
that was
engaging
entertaining.
Yeah, totally. I'm blown away at how the response. So
we've got vehicles going and coming, and customer base, that is just incredibly supportive and valuable to us. So
Another update I forgot to go over. It's probably important is Xander. We had his follow-up appointment for the surgery.
yes,
So he had the sutures removed from his eyeball. Comfort-wise, he's in way more comfort. He actually has not been wearing a patch anymore because he's able to open that eye easier. So he's been going around like that happily. Very excited that nobody's said anything negative, which none of us expected, but
Sure.
he was concerned
Yeah,
that it would
yeah.
upset people. The downside is the eye is shrinking.
mm-hmm.
So we are going to be dealing with prosthetics and plastic surgeons coming up in the future.
Sure.
So we're looking at that. His next follow-up appointment is September 8th. So we'll go out, talk to the doctor then, and he will let us know what the game plan is going forward.
So does he have any light or any
No vision.
No vision
None.
whatsoever. At
Zero.
This point. Yeah.
Completely blind in that eye.
Yeah.
And with the eyeball shrinking the way it is, it's just a matter of, are they going to remove the eyeball or are they going to put a prosthetic over top of it? And what plastic surgery is he going to need? Because when you're looking at his face, you can actually see the eyebrow on that side is sunken down.
Yeah.
The eye socket is sunken
The eye
in.
socket's going to start to not grow appropriately.
Correct.
If as it develops, if we don't have something in there pushing it out. So,
Correct. So
interesting. Yeah, this is in life, folks, and this is part of the American hustle. The underpinning of if you're interested in this kind of adapt and overcome ish and self development and business and leadership and ethics in the workplace and whatnot, that Jeffrey and I oftentimes get together and talk about specifically. This is the mantra of, it's not how many times things go right or perfect or whatever, but how we respond when things are not going our way.
Yeah.
Right.
and things not going our way, over the weekend, Lily sliced her foot open, had to go to ER for stitches, and ended up just getting glued together because she didn't want stitches. But just one thing after another, and we just keep moving forward.
That's right.
You
That's
know?
right. You take it in. I was actually, honestly, I was talking to my mother about it this morning. The idea that life is just a journey of obstacles for us to surmount, right? And the moment that we think we've passed one, something new pops up, and it is our ability to improvise, adapt, and overcome is the potential secret to success in life, right? This idea that not accepting that things are here to go smoothly, but that accepting that things are here to go like hot garbage, and our ability to endure and process and move past it is actually to our benefit. So,
And honestly, if you haven't watched The American Hustle, our last episode is very much related to that topic. It's
Yes.
something you should go back and listen to.
yes, definitely should. All right, so we are going to be talking about restorative processes,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is critically important to us as SFJ 4x4 because, as I mentioned before, we have garnered a just an authentically national reputation for this. Our performance builds have been fantastic for years, right? So we have the customers that go up and down the East Coast. We have customers from California.
Yeah, the restoration part is actually a little younger than
The restoration
performance part.
Correct, right? Our ability to really dive into the restorative processes, and I think it's interesting because looking from the outside, I think people will be like, "Oh, but you've been working on old Jeeps forever, right?"
Yeah, which is true.
Which is true, right? But the idea that doing it efficiently, in an effective manner that meets both the customer and the business's needs.
Yep.
And actually following that restorative process from start to finish is one of the things that's actually a little more difficult. So when we see some of these top performing performance shops in the country, and be it whether it's a dynamometer shop that has performance cars, or Hemi and tunned out Jeep business doing 6x6s or Hemi swaps or whatever, those new vehicles with a lot of R&D that are pushed behind that are actually a little easier to work on because they unbolt and they rebolt.
Yep.
It's when we get into the challenge of with the newer stuff of doing custom suspensions, custom steering geometries, custom,
Right.
that kind of stuff. That's the problem solving challenges. The old Jeeps have that
Yes.
plus parts availability,
Yep.
plus they don't come apart,
Nope.
plus they're rusty,
Yep.
and the thing is the issue is there's almost an imagery that is oftentimes iconic or specific to the customer,
Yep.
right, that they want to see in that restored vehicle.
Yep.
Whereas we can all kind of just conjure up a 6x6 Jeep, or kind of a, if you think of Chuck Norris, he has kind of just a very cool, aggressive tons and 40s and high flares look. You go, oh yeah, that looks cool, whatever, and you move on.
Yep.
Whereas our restorations have kind of an iconic imagery.
Iconic or sentimental.
Or sentimental. Thank you. That's also incredibly valuable. And that's what I was trying to say with the customer has a specific vision in their brain, and that sentimental vision is also there.
And the worst part is when you start, this will be fun, let's start a restoration. You don't really comprehend what that entails or what that means. So the other part that I've learned, people will get in and they will have a sort of a direction, and then something in life will happen and they'll change their direction mid-project, and then that'll happen 3 or 4 more times. And either that derails the project to not finish, this is if you're doing it personally, or when the vehicle is then done, it doesn't get the attention or it should garner because it's disjointed. It doesn't have this flow of consistency through the beginning to the end.
And other times, the life change could actually accelerate and do more. You may come in going, oh, we're just going to do this. And then life happens. They come across some extra money. Hey, let's actually fully invest now.
It doesn't matter what it is, will change as you do the project.
Correct.
That's where the Jeep will tell us what it wants comes from.
I think personally, when you're looking at restorations, if you're looking to restore an older vehicle like the M38s or some of the TJs we're doing, you basically need to plan as if you're buying a new car. To an extent.
Almost worse, because the best thing you relate to is like a Century home. You don't know what's in the walls. You don't know what you're going to find. And sometimes you get into a home and then you take down that wall and suddenly there's this beautiful decorative woodwork. And you're like, that speaks to me. Now I want to do the woodwork in the house.
Now I want to do this woodwork that I
and
discovered.
you had no plan of doing that beforehand. Or the vehicle equivalent of it is you get into it and then you realize, there's only, I'm just going to make some up, 10 with this specific combination.
Yes.
And I thought I was going to build a mud runner out of it. Well, maybe I don't want to do that anymore. And that's the stuff that you just cannot foresee and you can't plan for.
Right.
You just have to roll with the punches, and you can't be going into it scared, because then you just won't be committed to it. You got to go in whole hog and do it. You're not doing it to make financial sense. I'll warn you that right up front. Sometimes it does, but you don't know that until afterwards.
Right. And I think the challenge is with much of how I see life, and I've always openly shared this when I started just tearing Jeeps apart and arguably, my parents' driveway, right?
Yep.
And then selling them out into the Jeep community. I used to say, anybody can do this. It's how we do it that makes us different, right? Or makes us special. And to look at this from an ownership and or business venture standpoint, the idea that people start projects every day.
Yep.
I mean, right now, somebody is listening to us while they are starting a new project, whether that is in their mind and they're trying to buy it on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist right now, or from a friend, or they're actually in their garage. The speakers are piped up, and and you're starting to nut and bolt.
I'm going to interrupt you, Per Davy.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
An Indiana man gets arrested for driving a toy Jeep while under the influence. John McKee was arrested last night around 9 in Vincennes after he was driving a Power Wheels Jeep on North 2nd Street. An ISP trooper pulled him over, stating the vehicle had no lights or reflectors and was hard to see. McKee was found to be under the influence of meth and marijuana. He was booked into Knox County Jail and is charged with driving under the influence.
Not surprised.
Davey requested that I interrupt the episode with that today.
That is messed up, man. both here, and
Should have a moment
and
of silence for that poor child who lost their Jeep.
they lost their power wheel. I want to know.
There's more
whose
to
power
the
wheel.
story.
I want to know whose power wheel was he driving.
Yes.
I want to know what motor. How did they have that charged? Where was he going? Okay, I have so many questions now. What was his plan?
He didn't have a plan.
He didn't have a plan.
He was just out for a
He
joyride
was
at
just
that
out
point.
for a joyride.
Yeah.
I want to see pictures of that guy.
For those that don't know, you can get DUIs on anything that moves.
Anything that moves.
Bicycles,
Yep. Or
lawnmowers.
It's got to be motorized.
I've heard about
bicycle. No,
bicycles.
I've Connie, Ohio. I factually know
yeah,
people.
sadly, I
who've
couldn't
got-
back Neil up on this.
Yep. So I don't know if that's a state to state, but it was absolutely has happened on a bicycle.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yep.
Yeah. At least in Ohio, unless in this town, if it's got wheels and you can fall off of it, you can get a DUI on
If
it.
it has wheels and you can crash into somebody or you can fall
Yep.
off,
You're gonna have a bad time.
you could have a bad time.
Joe Brilla, I'm amazed it was Indiana and not Florida.
I mean, it's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other.
Dave Ammerman saying, "Welcome to Indiana."
Dave, do you have more on that
have.
storyline? That's what I
backstory
want
there.
to know.
Chuck saying, "Headed to the Barbie Jeep contest."
Yep.
Down in
Yes.
Bantam. And then Darla's saying, "I see a lot of racing in those things. Probably headed to one of those." So,
Yeah.
yep.
Definitely.
Probably. Oh,
So
gracious.
anyway.
Well, we were talking about restorations, right?
Yep.
And got totally derailed.
Yes.
Totally derailed, which is, you know,
That happens.
That happens. The idea, I'm totally derailed on the Barbie Jeep at this point. Well done, Savage.
So-
well done.
So how about I just talk about mistakes I've made?
Well, this
doing
is what I'm saying. I was talking about people starting it right now. Hopefully,
Yep.
that guy wasn't leaving his restoration
Yeah, it
too.
probably was.
The idea that
was trying to get
projects
to
are
it.
started every day, and the ability, and you've had professional experience with other shops,
Yep.
and other places of employment. I have had it with other acquaintances. We see the things listed all the time. This project didn't get completed
Yes.
because you've moved, you've changed life, all those things you're talking about.
Yep.
And many businesses,
Yeah,
just
they're
because they're an
done that.
automotive business, does not mean they are well equipped to start at point A
Yep.
and to finish at point Z.
Yep.
And yeah, the alphabet might be jumbled in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
but actually starting and finishing.
Yep.
And that is what part of today's podcast is going to be talking about, is the fact that we have developed processes for both our performance side, but also specifically our restorative processes at this point.
Yep.
To actually start and finish.
We've created a recipe that is replicable among all the different restorations
Many
we do.
different types.
The
of
many
Jeeps.
different types
Yep.
of Jeeps and restorations.
Yes.
So that's the ownership level that I was talking about, is that every day somebody's starting a project, but to actually be able to finish and follow through
Yep.
is what I think sets us apart. And to what you had
Speaking
said
of follow
earlier,
through, I
to
heard
what
that
you
there's
had
a
said earlier, oh my God.
I heard there's a bet that was lost over the weekend.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that.
Stop derailing us, Jeffrey.
Bad Jeff.
To your credit, I won the bet.
You did.
and I'm trying to not jump in on it.
Yes.
But you know,
I'll be in the mistakes. Don't worry.
oh God. But the fact that that we do have this follow through, that we do have this completion rate,
Yep.
and we've put it into a time frame
Yes.
that is
There's
tangible.
so many cars. I know. I've heard paint jail, restoration jail. 10 to 12 years is honestly the average length.
and
of
I would
time
say-
for most shops to do a restoration.
And my experience has been 5 to 7,
Yeah.
and that's what you were saying before, is that it comes out and it doesn't look cohesive.
No.
You can tell that different individuals have touched it.
Yep.
And the problem that I have with all of, like, when I look out of the concourse of automotive society, I see where that shop, at an ownership, at a management, at a professional level, rushed it at the end.
Yes. Always.
They didn't the
And
concept here.
That's where the problems start, right?
That's
there.
where it starts, and here you'll hear us when you work with us. The devil's in the details.
Yep.
Just because it looks like a complete vehicle does not mean that it's ready to rock and roll.
And the secret of that is when you do a big chunk, it really gets exciting. So you take it all apart. Wow, I accomplished so much because there's parts everywhere now.
Correct.
And then the depression sets in because you realize every single part I just took off needs restored.
Yes, I just took it apart.
Everything needs touched.
I no longer own a Jeep. I have
Yes.
piles.
I have piles of parts, which is I've dealt with that still. I tell Amy all the time, like I wish I had a whole car right now and not pieces of a 36 Ford.
Yes.
But you'll get through that, and then you start putting things back together. And you have this clean frame, and the axles are clean, and the springs are clean. And you're putting it back together, and now you have a chassis, and that's exciting. But then you realize the body's a hot piece of garbage, and you
Yep.
need to do something with that. And what does that mean? And then you finally get the body fit on, which is a whole other process. But at some point, that Jeep will be painted, will be on the frame, the chassis, and all. At least the way we do it, will be done ski, sort of.
Right.
It still doesn't run.
No.
It doesn't drive. It doesn't steer. There's no electrical. There's no glass. There's no lights. That's the devil in the details. And the sucky part is you could work for 8, 10, 12 hours on a wiring harness, and it doesn't look any different.
No.
You take pictures, and I sometimes in that thing, as we update our customers a lot, I struggle. I'm like, I wish they saw what that 8 hours actually did, but
Right.
there was a process in that where I had to like, oh, I'm going to try it this way. Oh, wait, no, that didn't make sense. Let's do it this way. Or, certain Mr. Ryan would come in and be like, hey, what about if we do this? And I'm like, well, Ryan, thankfully you messaged me now because I was going to do this, and now I got to go over here.
I was
going to
take a left, and now I got to take a right.
and go on the off ramp.
Yep.
So and then I don't hate on anybody for doing that because you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Correct.
And you don't know what you need until you need it. So that's all part of it. But the other part I have experienced is people will work 5 times harder to not take something apart when they should just give up and take it apart.
Yes.
Like splitting a Jeep, something that we do all the time. People are like, oh my God, the Jeep's in new pieces. It makes work so much better and faster and look nicer and
Cleaner, more efficient.
all that. And same way with like something more reliable, heater cores or AC condensers in the dash. I have seen people break more dashboards and cut up their arms and break things or cut things to not take the dash out when they could have just took the dash out,
Yep.
changed the heater core, and been done
Yes.
inside the time frame of them still cutting their arms up.
Yes. And even if you cut a couple corners and you got done a little faster,
Yeah.
the idea is maybe the hose clamp or the clamp didn't get right back onto the heater
100%.
core. Maybe you didn't get that cable. I mean, we just popped a Jeep open the other day that her HVAC wasn't working,
Yep.
and it was one of her complaints, and it was intermittent, and we popped it open, and because of somebody else's service, they didn't get the actuator cable back into the channel or
Bracket.
groove, the bracket, to
Yep.
hold it secure.
Yep.
So now when she turned the knob, nothing was there. It wasn't functioning the way that it was engineered. I saw it online the other day. A customer posted, when we remove axles to do re-gears. That way our technician is sitting in a comfortable space. He's able to do, his arms are relaxed, his shoulders are down. He's not crunched over like Quasimodo, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and doing gears. And if he needs to put that gear set in and out, this is what I say at an ownership level. I don't care if it has to go in and out for 17 different times.
Yep.
He can do that more comfortably versus crunch down, shoves it in, and goes, that's close enough for horseshoes and hand grenades.
Yes.
That's not close enough is not right.
Correct.
Right? And so when you're talking about splitting a Jeep for restoration, close enough is not correct.
No.
So if we're doing a restoration, then we're taking it all apart so we can inspect piece by piece.
Yep. And
No-
like hashtag not a restoration, we didn't know about frame rust until we did that.
Yes.
And it was pretty severe rust. Thankfully, it wasn't as bad enough that we couldn't fix it.
Yes.
But another 5-10 years, it would have been.
Could have been a beautiful Jeep on
Yes.
a crumbling foundation.
And I've sadly seen that more than once.
yes.
I've also seen beautiful paint jobs on not addressed underneath vehicles. And underneath is where you stop, steer, and go. And if you don't have those keystones correct, it doesn't matter how pretty the
And
paint job
no
is.
specific paint shop in mind, but that's my number one gripe regarding restorations that are very popular. You'll see them, all over Instagram, all over SEMA or any of the big auction sites or whatever. They're just a beautiful paint job on a crap chassis.
Yes.
The wiring's old and hacked together still. You'll find twisty nuts and house wiring in there. But don't worry, it's gorgeous paint on the outside because the general consumer sees the paint and not the fact that you can't drive it down the road.
100%.
Now, you guys were talking a little bit about time frames of what a normal restoration looks like outside of our process. How quick are we turning out restorations right now?
2 to 3 years.
Our goal is 2 years.
So that's incredibly fast. But additionally, the downside to that is we're also pushing customers out a year or two to get on a waiting list.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we've been fortunate. So to share that as a business level, we've been fortunate that our customers, if I'm just being very clear, you're paying a deposit, you're signing a service agreement, and it is a non-refundable $1,000 deposit that puts you on our schedule within the given period of time moving forward. And that is where we're at. So technically speaking, just based on our current exact business model, we are CJs specifically. That's, so not our TJ customers, though we do have a TJ customer who's been waiting a year as well. And that's not any of our customers currently online. I'm saying we have a customer, one in wait. She's on deck at this moment.
Yep.
We're into 2025 in our CJs at this point.
Yeah.
So little tchotchke things here and there, but our current model has us taking deposits on 2025. Interestingly enough.
Yep.
So interesting challenge with the efficiency, but that also is our ability to appropriately give our paying customer what they're expecting.
Yep.
In a very timely manner.
And arguably a very timely manner, because quite frankly, I know Scott and I growing up went into a lot of shops where in the back corner, it was two things. One, it was either the owner's
personal
pet project that
they're dying.
was there dying.
Yes.
It was never going to see the light of day.
Yep.
And as a side note, thanks to the family here at the Jeep community, I'm out driving in one of my dream Jeeps, right? So kudos to us there. Or
As you
two,
should be.
yep. But number two is a customer or two who's quote unquote doing a restoration.
Yep.
And it's just sitting there dying in the back corner.
Yep.
Got an inch of dust on it.
Yep.
And it just hasn't been worked on in weeks.
Yep.
Months maybe.
Just jumping back into comments real quick. Scott Lindquist jumped on and said, "Morning, guys. I missed the start of the show. Is this conversation due to my Jeep project I started in my head and sent to Neil last night?" Neil. Then
No, it's not, Lindquist. No, it's not.
Daddy Jeep, there's a new short quoting Scott. "You don't know what you don't know until you know."
It's true.
It's all true.
Should go on a shirt.
It should go on a shirt.
It needs to be Davey. Then Darla said, "I feel like they're talking to me, past, present, and future." Joe,
No shots
thanks for
fired
joining
at all.
us. He had to take off for a call.
Joe, best of luck on the work call. We always appreciate you being on.
Mark's actually going to be here with his Jeep this afternoon.
All right, Mark, we'll see you shortly.
And then your wife Amy saying
There's
hi
a
as
new
well.
kitten owner.
The new kitten.
The new kitten
jumping
owner.
on as well.
Whatever.
She's
She's
done
not the new
grooming.
kitten owner. We know it's your kitten.
Yeah, we know it's your cat at this point.
Is
Oh,
it
goodness.
already
All right.
snuggling on you in your chair?
Oh, it's so much.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. So as far as our restorative process, we were talking a lot about the functionality of it, kind of the business ownership level. Obviously, those things are critically important. You talked about splitting the vehicle, disassembly.
Yep.
So what are some of the things that we try to do here to maintain once we're breaking down that Jeep?
So obviously everybody kind of knows this, but doesn't follow it. Get bags, put bolts, hardware.
Okay, but we do follow this.
Yeah, we
Right.
do.
Everybody, I mean,
I've seen
this,
people know it, but they don't always.
this
follow
goes
it.
back to that project piece, doing it in your driveway. And I'll be the first person to admit that 20 years ago, I was trying to build Jeeps
Yeah, we do. We
And-
know this now because we did it wrong.
Right,
before.
because we did it wrong before.
Yep.
And hardware is the
hardware
number
is
one
the nightmare.
nightmare.
I think
Yes.
beyond just doing it in plastic bags, but the cardboard template, so you know where the bolts went on the piece,
100%.
is also very
and
helpful.
assume every bolt that comes off is not replaceable. I've seen people take stuff apart with a grinder. Yeah, I'll just replace all that hardware. You have no idea what you just said.
Correct.
Every bolt, I assume it's $3 at least.
Yes. And you know what the problem, and at least $3, because hear me out, folks. I took apart a couple Jeeps. I was working on, I mean, the number one that sticks out to me, I had that 89 Cherokee with that, fancy suspension underneath of it. And that hardware, I didn't know at that time, right? I couldn't go into a local shop and have them help me with the hardware and whatnot. And so I'm buying that hardware online from Skyjacker at that time.
Yep.
And I'm paying them
Probably $10 a bolt
like $10 a bolt plus shipping.
plus shipping.
So now I'm buying a bolt at $17
Yes.
a piece,
Yep.
right? Oh, hey, I got a nut. Can you get a nut? Oh, yeah. Hey, oh, and he goes, well, there's a washer on there. Oh, I'll throw that washer in for free. Oh, my gosh, thank you. I'm so excited as a consumer.
Yep.
Meanwhile, I mean, they've already made quadruple the money on me
Easily.
just because they're selling a bolt that they know exactly what it is and I don't know.
And just
I
for
lost it in the
example,
process.
My 36 Ford, almost every single bolt on that is fine thread. Almost
Yeah.
every single one. And it's that way for a reason. It's because that's the way they designed it to torque down to not back off. And certain bolts have washers and certain ones don't. That's all very important for the structural integrity of that car to go back together the right way.
Yes.
And full disclosure, I've bought bolt kits and been like, now that I have this in my hands, this is not what I want. And
Yeah.
I bought them again
Yep.
because I'm going to put it together the right way. And sometimes that's a $60, $70 mistake. But
Constantly.
car's got to be right at the end because I want to be able to drive this thing for 10 plus years
Yes.
without working on it every single day. Now, things will happen. Radiators fail. Like Amy CJ, we spent 11 years building that. We had it on the road for probably 2.5, and the radiator I put in it failed. I will tell you right out front, it's a place I try to save money, and it bit me.
Always. That is always where we're trying to take. And I hate to call it a shortcut because really we're just trying to save a couple bucks in the process.
And it was it looked like it was an all metal radiator. It was bolted in properly, had the appropriate hardware, it had the appropriate hoses. Just wasn't a good quality radiator.
Yep. So I like Jeffrey brought up the cardboard templates, and what that is, folks who are listening at home, we'll take a piece of cardboard, and oftentimes we'll actually take the bolts and insert them in a particular pattern
Yep.
in the cardboard. So let's say it's a head, maybe it's a valve cover or something like that.
Yeah.
You'll actually
Maybe one bolt's longer than the other.
correct. And one bolt might be longer than the others in the process because maybe it's got the ground strap on it,
Yep.
or because a particular bracket, affixes to it that holds the fuel line, to the head.
Yep.
Who knows? And so you put that on that cardboard template. And so what I like is that we end up with the cardboard templates and the baggies. I know from my own personal experiences, and obviously growing up with my grandparents and my parents, you had little coffee cans, you had old cigar boxes, you had, little jars, and you get this mishmash of containers. The uniformity becomes distracting.
Yes.
Right. And then you set a can down over here and it blends in, whereas everything's in a
Right.
baggie and it's labeled.
Or if one can gets thrown away, then you're in trouble.
Correct.
Now, at this point in the game, I've done enough CJs. I can go through and be like, well, that's a shock bolt and that's this bolt, and I can kind of fill in the gaps. But that's only because I've got plenty of Jeeps under my belt.
And that's for us, right?
Yes.
And for folks who are endeavoring
Trying
to do this at
themselves.
home,
Yeah.
that uniformity in keeping hardware specific. And the problem is that people overthink hardware because, again, we see that pretty paint job, we see that tire wheel package, we don't think of that nut and bolt that holds everything together.
Yep.
And that's could literally hold up the job,
Yes.
right? One of our earliest
has.
DJs, yeah. And that's why I keep a tail light on my desk or around my desk from one of the earliest military Jeeps that we did.
Yep.
Because that tail light not existing
Yes.
held us up from finalizing and that customer taking delivery of their vehicle.
Yep.
And it's a constant reminder for me when looking at project management to say something so simple, a taillight. The whole Jeep was done and back together and running, and was, the customer's father had passed. It was their Jeep. They wanted it back, blah, blah, blah. And we just didn't have that darn taillight, And so that devil in the detail, the hardware, is so valuable to help it organize. Additionally, internally, we have shelves where we try to dedicate to that vehicle's parts and pieces when they come off.
100%. And the next thing is pictures. Take all the pictures. You will be going back through them in the future to figure out how did that bracket go on. I have seen so many things online where they're like, I have this piece. What does this go? And they bought a project somebody else tore apart. We call it the Jeep in a box.
Yep.
Luckily, again, because I have that brain and I've been there enough, we can put together Jeeps in boxes pretty efficiently. But if you're at home trying to do that, that can take forever.
Yes. Very challenging.
And it can go on 15 different ways sometimes. Right. And still be wrong.
And even then, it's not just about knowing where the bolts go, but if you got that in a box mess, finding the bolt that you need to go there.
Well, and then case example, like AMC V8 water pumps. There is like originally 5 different ones. And the new ones, they make about maybe 2, maybe at most 3. And all those little differences is boss thickness. So that's the bolts to hold it to the motor. That's the bolts to hold the accessory drives on. And when you buy your new water pump, they'll come with a couple of spacers that you may need or may not need. That is just one example of little stupid things like that.
I think that you just brought up a point that, oh my God, it was actually like a trauma trigger for me for a second there. Thinking about my own working on old stuff, that when you are buying an aftermarket part, right? I remember encountering it specifically when I got into axles, and I was working on those 80s series Dana 44s. And the idea that I bought ball joints from Spicer for these axles that I was building, and the idea that ball joint actually fit 136 different applications. And so in that box,
snap ring,
I had snap rings, I had castle nuts, I had spacers, I had the torque where it's a threaded torque
split ring.
There was 5 or 6 things in that box. So when I opened it up, and I was none the wiser, I didn't know what I didn't know until I knew it. That honestly, only like 2 things in there actually applied to me.
And don't throw away anything until it's back on the Jeep.
Amen.
Because you take that ball joint out, you look at the stuff in the box, or you don't even realize box goes in the garbage can. 3 months later. Crap. I need that split ring. Guess what? They don't sell that separately.
They don't, right? And that's the thing, is that there was all these pieces in the box because it fit so many different applications because it's a vintage part for a vintage vehicle. And the idea that, that now at that time, yes, maybe you could have walked into the local auto parts store and bought that specific part and only 3 things would have been in the box and you used all 3 things. People are used to that with their new vehicles. But because that old part fit so many different things, there's so many extra parts and pieces in there. Which may or may not be applicable to your process.
Another mistake I've seen people do is they're like, well, my seats are all torn up and I want to just go buy new ones. Now, CJs specifically are pretty lucky. They have high quality replacements that bolt in. That doesn't apply for 98% of
other
cars.
vehicles.
So
Jeep folks, I'm going to hijack this. Jeep folks, right now, you are so fortunate. Because as soon as you deviate from our market, those parts don't exist for these other hot rodders and restorers and all that kind of stuff.
They have to make them.
And there's big hot pockets of Ford Mustangs and applicable cars and GM platforms and but we as a Jeep community can come together under a number of builders with a number of suppliers, and we can make the process pretty straightforward.
And honestly, AMC not only helps us but hurts us but they made things so interchangeable that they fit multiple years. Now we have 10-year spans. Back in the 60s, things changed every single year. So apart from a 62 will not fit a 63.
Right.
And case example is my 36 Ford. I thought growing up, all these guys with early Fords, they must be so lucky. They got all these catalogs and that kind of stuff. And then I buy my 36 and I'm like, crap. I can't buy this. They don't make that. Or they made it in the 70s, but they don't make it anymore. That kind of stuff happens. So,
right. And now you're working with one guy who also was in your place.
Yes.
And he started to tool some things out in his backyard or his basement or his garage. And yeah, it looks great online. He's got a website, but his lead times are 6, 7, 8, 12, 14 weeks because it's just him building a couple things by himself. You know, we as Jeep community members, we have industry dedicated to the restorative process of our Jeeps.
Yes.
So it's super, super interesting in that regard.
But anyway, what I was going to say is I know a guy, since I have a Rambler, I'm in a couple of Rambler groups, and he got a quote on his seats getting recovered.
Yes.
That's very expensive. And he's decided, I'm just going to go to the junkyard. I'm going to find some vehicle. I'm going to rip the seats out of it, and I'm going to bolt them in my car. And he was trying to give away his original seats or throw them away. If he has to go buy those in 5 years,
yes,
he's in trouble.
He's in trouble. He's boned.
Yeah, he's boned. You need to put those away and pretend they don't exist. Case in point, too, is like Laredo seats for CJ. They don't make those.
Mm-hmm.
And those, if you are trying to restore a Laredo to that nth degree, somebody will pay crazy money for those or Levi seats.
Right.
I just saw someone wanting to remove some Levi low buckets and go to some high buckets. They didn't know.
They didn't know. Yeah.
Until they knew it.
Right. Right.
Those Laredo or those Levi buckets are very hard to get.
Very desirable. And it sounds funny, but something as simple as seats.
Yes.
Right. And the funny thing is that a lot of people see seats advertised online. And even our showroom, we had seats on display there for a while, and there are good quality aftermarket seats available, but they almost never, unless you're willing to spend premium money, function like the OE seat did.
Yep.
The idea that, that seat looks cool, but you legitimately get what you pay for. And, we swapped the seats out in Chuck. I went with more of a CJ style with...
You did a custom thing.
We did a custom thing.
Yep.
And...
What challenges did we run into just doing that?
So... The flip mechanism doesn't function, right? So we had to do a custom flip paddle, which then, is something that had to be welded on that created enough leverage. So there was this fine point between insufficient leverage to turn the mechanism, to unlock it, to flip it forward, to being too long that it interfered with the function of the rest of the seat. Let alone now the seat is actually fixed. It's a fixed back. So in TJs, because there are only 2 doors getting in and out of the back, they should kind of fold in an acute angle down onto themselves and flip forward. Mine no longer do that. So your entrance and egress of the back seat of the Jeep is compromised because it's fixed. And I still... when I slide it back without being conscientious of the flip paddle handle, I can actually slide that handle where it goes up and kind of binds with my slide mechanism versus down. And it's not avoidable because this is what you get with going to these custom seats.
That's the choices you had made.
Those are the choices I made to get the look that I wanted.
And that's the thing I always get a good kick out of is people want to run over the engineer, and sometimes I do too. But they have worked to the nth degree, figuring out that handle now pops up and now I can't get to it. And the seat back doesn't move. And there's a bunch of compromises. We are spoiled to a point.
Yes.
When we get a vehicle from the dealer new and everything functions.
Yes.
And our steering wheel is warm.
Yes.
And our butts are warm.
Yes.
And our tops don't leak.
And that's just different than these restorative processes, right?
Yes.
and it's just different. And again, it goes back to those 6x6s and those Hemi swap vehicles. They're beautiful, they're awesome, but that level of overall customer satisfaction happens. Yeah, the Hemi can hiccup a couple times if your butt's still warm and your steering wheel's tight and
Yes.
blah 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 blah. You're okay, but in the restoration, if you're unhappy with the seat and the seat belt is a little loosey goosey and the steering wheel's just not right and the engine hiccups, well, now you're like, oh man, this thing's a piece of junk. I spent all that money,
Yep.
and we never want that.
No.
But
That's all
that's
part
the
of the devil
reality.
in the details.
That's part of the devil in the details. The last piece that I think that I will touch on restorative processes as we try to reasonably stay on track and keep moving forward is what I would call the domino effect.
Mm-hmm.
You change one thing, you change 100.
5.
You went with 5. I went with 100.
My dad's saying was 5.
Okay. So
So
tell us what what was your dad meaning by that? What do you feel about that?
Well, you changed the seats in Chuck Norris. So
Yep.
now I'm changing the way they flip forward.
Yep.
I'm changing the way I recline them. I'm changing the way the seat belt fits around them.
Yes.
Uh,
The way that my kids get in and out of the
the way
vehicle.
the egress and exgress of the vehicle is. I'm changing my seating position.
Mm-hmm.
It's at least 5.
At least.
At least. Just
At
for
least.
a seat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's that's exactly it. So as you move through the customization or restoration process, if you change one thing, there's going to be a domino effect
Mhm.
of other things that then have to be addressed. I love the idea. All the time people come in with like a custom stereo in a vintage vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
but we have insufficient wiring, or the wiring to the speakers hasn't been changed, or the speakers themselves haven't been changed.
Yep.
So now we took a stereo that has, a 200 amp output
Yep.
and we're pumping it through 40-year-old technology.
Yes.
That just doesn't work that way.
No.
And so these people, and if you're listening to us and you're considering this right now, if you think you're going to put, we sell these really cool stereos that look period correct,
Yep.
but they are Bluetooth capable. But you're going to put it in and you're going to hook it into your unreliable wiring,
Mm-hmm.
into your unreliable speakers.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden you go to play your stereo and it cuts out, and you're like, "Wow, this stereo is a piece of junk." It's not the stereo.
Mm-hmm.
It's the wiring. It's what you installed it into.
Yep.
It's the fact that the wiring or the speakers to the left side of the vehicle are no longer functioning. And yeah, now it only comes out of the right. That's not the stereo's fault. That's the speaker's fault, the Jeep's fault.
Yep.
Jeffrey, how are you doing over here, man?
So we had lost internet for a moment, and it took a moment to get it restored. I did have to create a new live feed because it just would not reconnect to the old one.
Okay.
I think it timed out on Facebook, so I've restored it. We're back live with Facebook.
But we recorded all the stuff we just said.
For the
right?
listeners, they
listeners
they
are
wouldn't have known.
unaffected.
Yep, they'll
And
know
that's,
nothing.
That's why I thought, Scott and I were going to just keep doing what we do.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
For
I'm over here
listener.
quickly.
You are a duck on water over there.
Yes.
I'm going to take this moment to
You were
just
telling us to
to-
quit, so I was just going to keep going.
I was just going to take this moment and appreciate you
Yes.
because
If that would
we
have
all
happened a couple
know-
weeks ago, we've been so screwed.
I would have been shaking in my boots, right?
Yes.
And Jeffrey was over here. For folks who are listening to us, and even those of you who join us live, Jeffrey was over here, a duck on water. He looked calm and collected on the surface,
Yep.
and I'm telling you, stuff was flying on the screen, on the computer. His
Yeah.
fingers were
I
going.
was trying to do this.
I know.
So I
I'm
was-
looking at Scott. I'm trying to make eye contact with Scott, and Scott's like a deer in the headlights, looking at what Jeffrey's doing. And I
Yeah.
was like, nope, he's got this.
Yep.
I was like,
with
we're
all
gonna
the
keep.
confidence.
I know you had confidence, but you had deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
You were confident you were going to take out that truck that was barreling down at you.
Yep.
I knew Jeffrey. I said, hey, you know what? If we're recording for our listeners at home, all three of you, and we appreciate you,
Yes.
and on the road and in your workshops, we're going to keep on talking. We're going to do our thing.
And that's an
So-
important part to kind of sort of wrap all this up is if you are, on the other side of the country and you are doing a restoration and you're going, what do I do next? We have things available for you as well.
Yes.
You can call in. there is, I believe, a small fee. That's the business side of things.
Yeah.
But you can talk to the maddest scientist, and I will do my best to help you.
He was switching.
He was.
I was talking
third
third
person,
person.
first person.
person.
There might have been
So-
a fourth person in there. I'm not sure
well,
what was going on.
And our listeners at home, he's motioning to me on the business side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. We have remote consultations available, right? Because ultimately, we recognize twofold. One, we want to help members of the Jeep community be successful.
Where
Two,
you are in your project.
right, wherever you are in your project. We don't need to do the whole thing. In fact, we arguably can't do the whole thing.
I'm only one guy,
for
guys.
a lot of people.
Well, and the way that the remote consultation is helpful to you is we can do it by phone, we can do it by text, we can do it by video,
Yes.
live video chats. I mean, there's all these different options to help walk you through that process.
Right. And we recognize while many customers do elect to bring their Jeeps to us from remote areas of the country, that doesn't always fit your needs, nor does it necessarily have to,
Yes.
right? You might be just needing help getting through one little portion of this project.
Yep.
And I know
You
for
may
myself,
need me to look at the hardware and say that's a sway bar bolt.
yeah, you might need that, right? And I know my own experience years ago, I would have loved a service like this because I didn't need, even building the house, I don't need you to swing the hammer for me.
Yeah.
I need you to tell me where to hit with the hammer,
Yes.
right?
Well,
And-
and I'll never forget one of the earliest things we did in the restoration thing was a guy had bought a Jeep. It came with doors, but he had no idea what this box of parts were for,
Yes,
how to put them together, or how to put them on the Jeep.
yes. Well, and for you listening at home, Scott did the air quotes on the restoration thing. As us, as a business learning, as you know, as professionals here, one of the earliest things we did for our vintage customers was this. He bought the Jeep, he bought the doors, and
Yep.
he didn't know how to put them back together.
Yep.
And he remotely wanted to be engaged in them being put back together,
Yep.
but he knew that was, out of his league.
Yep.
And so he, had us walk him through it.
Yeah,
And he
thankfully
paid
he
for
had-
that service.
He
as
had
well.
the right hardware and he had some of the pieces to be able to do that. But
Yes.
there was a very good chance he didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we would have been able to help him source those parts and pieces. But
100%.
that's how we can help our people at home in that process. So we have folks who are willing to come in for said restorations, but
Mhm.
those of you who are at home, we hope you take some of these tools of organization and processing and whatnot, and then we actually have tools available to you as remote consultations,
Yep.
and obviously part availability that we can turn you on to the right stuff for your job.
And even if you're thinking, haven't even gotten to the restoration part, you're thinking about it, and you're like, it would be cool to have an old CJ or an old full size or a Jeepster or any of that kind of stuff. If Ryan would have called us before he bought his Jeep, he wouldn't have bought a CJ5. He would
Right.
have bought a CJ7.
Correct.
I can't undo the 5. The
Mhm.
5-ness of the Jeep is
It's
there.
there. Yep.
He has decided to go to the gym and to do other things and just deal with the
I think he looks pretty good the
He
way
does.
he is, buddy.
Yeah, I'm not talking down to him, but he's a big guy,
Yes.
and he's in fit. He's actually pretty fit and pretty good. But a 5 is a small Jeep,
Yes.
and if he bought a Willys, we'd be in trouble.
We'd be moving the seats like we are on the M38.
Yep.
Right.
So it's one of those things that if you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Yes.
He didn't
Paul-
know that.
Paul's chiming in. CJ7 is greater than CJ5.
There's a little bit of truth there.
That's a little truth to that.
And that's, I love a CJ5, but by
Well-
today's standards, there's a reason we don't make
Yes.
that vehicle anymore. This is the other piece that I always tell people. The reason why, as you travel to work, as you're heading down the highway, if you're a trucker listening to us, and we appreciate you keeping the goods of the country moving, as you maybe are going to school, or you're a teacher or whatever, you look in the parking lots, you're not going to see 30, 40-year-old technology vehicles sitting in the parking lot, on the highway, on the road.
Well, you may, but that guy's dedicated, has a toolbox in hand,
Yeah.
and is willing to do the work.
Right. And that's going to be one. That's an
Yeah.
outlier,
Yes.
not the vast majority.
Yep.
And the reason is because we've moved past that in technology. and expectation.
Darla's asking, so you won't jump into it like you do Chuck?
No, that
I will jump into it, Darla.
You'll be
I will.
injured.
That's why I wheel barefoot, or in my socks.
The 6 is not much better.
No, the 6 is not. But the idea, folks, that that technology we learn as a community of automotive enthusiasts,
as
and
a
then
collective.
as a collective, and
Yeah.
then we improve for the next vehicle platform. That is why the JL is kind of the perfect mashup of the last 40 years, 50 years of Jeep life.
And you should own a vintage Jeep. There is something special
Makes
about
you
it.
appreciate.
Makes you appreciate what you drive. But all the time, especially the newer Jeep guys, if you've only gotten in, or ladies, into the newer Jeeps, and that's your only experience, people all the time come in and be like, well, I'd like to get this vintage Jeep, and what does that look like? We just had one over the weekend. It was like, well, I'd like to get a TJ stock because I think it would save me on fuel mileage. I was like,
No. That JL on 37 is going to get just as good fuel mileage as your
actually,
TJ.
I would argue probably better.
Probably.
And that's the other piece, and the last piece of this equation for restoration, I guess from my standpoint, is people who do get into the JK or now the JL or the JT, the Gladiator or the Wrangler communities, and they fall in love with the nostalgia, the romance of that vintage vehicle,
It's awesome. It really is.
It is, and we have talked about this before. It's going to take 4 times as much to invest in that vintage vehicle.
Yep.
To do the same thing, or even just close to what your bone stock, Wrangler or Gladiator is doing.
And I'm going to bring up the fact that a lot of people don't realize that there is a gigantic difference in ride quality.
Yes.
That's
100%.
also something they don't know until they don't know until they know it.
And,
Yep, that's right.
And I think it's interesting.
Is that a tongue twister at this point?
It is.
Oh my goodness!
I cannot say that
we're gonna,
really fast.
We're gonna have to title this program today's like restoration. You don't know what you don't know until you know it. So today's title is going to be on the podcast. That's the other piece. We have absolutely had customers because we've done a number of projects where the Jeep came off the road 30 years ago.
Yes. All the bumps and bruises go away, and you just remember
your
the
mind.
smiles.
You just remember the smiles,
Which
and then
you
all of a
will
sudden-
have smiles again.
Yes, but it's going to shake you around, and if you're a person who is your sciatic is already already bothering you, this Jeep isn't going to help.
And we've had that happen, sadly.
We have, and not just on one occasion, right, where people are trying to force themselves into this old vintage Jeep again. And
There's a lot we can change, but there's certain things just inherent with the design of the vehicle that we can't. We'll make it the best it possibly can.
Right. We'll make it the best we can with what we've got
Yep.
and what it is.
Yep.
But it'll never be that 2022 Porsche or
No.
Acura or whatever, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
And that's why you should have multiple Jeeps.
A whole stable full.
Yes.
And that's why you should have multiple Jeeps. That's what Scott likes.
And just schedule the next 2 years out with us and rotate them out.
That's fine.
Nice. All right, folks, that was a fun conversation on restorative processes. We didn't even get into the technical cut and bolt and weld and spacers and all that kind of stuff. Maybe we'll bring this topic up again in the future.
I think it's a great continuation after Labor Day to just go right back into it.
We possibly may. Let's take a brief break, come back for hashtag not sponsored.
And now it's time for our product spotlight.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Spotlight.
Hashtag not sponsored.
So what is this in this great mysterious cardboard box?
Mystery cardboard box that for our viewers can see just a little bit of writing at the
It says
top.
body armor, so I think it must be a bulletproof vest.
Bulletproof vest.
Definitely.
That's funny. So, and it's precariously standing up in the studio this whole
That's
time. I'm
fine.
pretty happy that it hasn't
Taken out the flag?
hasn't taken out the flag or
Scott did,
one of
thanks.
us. As far as the product behind us, we're going to be doing a YouTube video soon on an unboxing and maybe an installation of this particular product. I like it for a couple of different reasons. The kind of the user-friendly nature of it, or at least the intended user-friendly nature of it, is kind of first and foremost. It's going to be very good for our busy DIYers. So meaning you don't necessarily want to be out in your shop fabricating this product, fabricobbling it together. You want to just be able to pull it out of the box and then install it onto, a wall stud in your garage or out of your shed or whatever. What this product is actually a door hanger. So
let's just pause for a second. Who's got doors sitting on the floor somewhere?
Right?
I do.
Yep. Somewhere, somehow, there are. You have doors when you want to strip your Jeep naked and you want to go out and cruise for the day or the weekend or whatever. You take the doors off, and historically, we've taken the doors off, and you just randomly set them
wherever is close to the Jeep.
Wherever is close to the Jeep.
Toss them in a field,
Right. They end up in the grass.
Because you took them off and you went, wow, that's heavy.
Yes. And you put them on like a 2x4, spacing them up.
Well, that's when you're trying to be nice.
I set them on a towel, right? But there's
he really treats his Jeep nice.
We do. We tried it because then if you set it down on the concrete, then you risk scratching or breaking or blemishing the paint.
You know what you really shouldn't do? Put them in a gravel.
Especially before the doors were aluminum.
Right.
Yeah. Don't do that.
When they were the steel TJ doors, you could drop it and you bend the kind of the edge, the lip over just a little bit.
Yep.
You leave it in the dirt. And certainly, I've been guilty. You take the doors off, and maybe you'll go 4 weeks, maybe because you're able to park.
Oh yeah, you're gonna put it back on that next day, and then you don't.
And they just sit in the dirt and the muck.
And then your kids need their bicycle that you precariously lean them up against, and they move them and they fall over.
Yes.
Now you got a skunk striped up the middle of the door.
And it sounds like experience,
right?
I
wouldn't know anything about that. So, as vintage Jeep owners, we just dealt with this, right? Because they just weren't that fancy, and we just honestly it was one of those things
until they are,
right? And we just kind of dealt with it, and it's one of those things that I look at these products available, go, we shouldn't have just dealt with it before, right? But our tops were leaky and windy and all that kind of stuff.
All true statements.
This goes back to my conversation of we look around the parking lot or the highway, we're not going to see this technology the same way that we see the newer stuff.
Yeah.
And so once we know better, we do better.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a product that installs hanging on a wall, typically. Wall stud, you want to actually have it, a load, kind of a load reinforced stud or
up to the task
product. Yeah, something that's up to the task, right? You don't want to just have it hanging in drywall. And then the doors will hang by their pins, just like they do on the Jeep. If they're strong enough to hang on the Jeep that way, they're strong enough to hang off the wall that way. And you'll be able to store your doors up off the ground in an organized fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a very cool product that allows you to pull it out of the box and then do the installation and have the doors off. Yes, could you go into the workshop and cob some spacers and some metal and some wood and some pipe and go to Home Depot and take
I'll
16
even take
trips.
one further. You may have the welder, you may have some material, but you may have 15 other projects.
Yeah.
That you don't need to be building this for what this costs.
Correct. For under $150, you're pulling this out of a box,
putting it on the wall, hanging your doors.
How many doors does it hold?
I have no idea. I think this one holds all 4, but I'll have to double check. I will double check. We're going to let you know in the YouTube video. We'll do an unboxing.
Yep.
And we'll talk through, what this product is. We've seen it in application.
So if you're lucky and you're a TJ owner and it does all 4, then your half doors and your full doors can be on the same
Could be all stored at the same place.
Oh, okay.
Right? This might be too. I don't know. We're going to find out. You're going to see with us in the YouTube video. I've definitely had these other customers have bought them. There's door carts. There's a whole bunch of other options.
Yep.
This specific product I've seen in application elsewhere. We brought it in to do the YouTube video to show our customer base, maybe use it ourselves, and then help out some other Jeepers going forward. So
100%.
You'll want to look forward to that one coming up very soon. I think without further ado, we've got Jeeps to build.
2 seconds because we promised.
Okay.
We got to talk about why you won the bet.
Yep.
That's true.
So
I'm surprised he brought that up.
Young Scott and young Neil said a long time ago that we were going to race to the finish because we didn't know
our own vintage projects.
We didn't know what we didn't know until we knew it.
Yes.
as my tie-in there.
Yes,
Uh,
it was.
And
Full circle.
we didn't have kids, and we're living life on the large, and we're just making it happen. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna build this 78 GS 750 motorcycle from basically nothing.
Right. It was a race motorcycle. It was a
race
motorcycle in a
motorcycle.
box,
Box of a motorcycle.
and it was previously a dragster motorcycle of
It
some
was.
capacity.
It actually had wings under its frame.
Yep.
It literally was sitting in a barn. It was a true barn find. And you hauled home a pseudo
An
dream
81,
Jeep,
yeah, an 81 Scrambler that I loved.
and someone had decided to sort of modify as it had aged. I think it was originally a 4-cylinder, and somebody stuffed a V8 in it because obviously that's what you do.
Yeah, they had stuffed a 350 in it,
Yep.
and then they pulled the 350 out, so I bought it without motor.
Yep. Which is one of the reasons you were able to get it cheaper,
Yep,
which was important to young Scott Neal.
that's right.
Which is also I literally paid $1 for my motorcycle. So we're working on these. We're excited. We're in the 6 weeks. He's joining every Scrambler forum there is.
Oh yeah, I was going to go on the Scrambler Roundup.
Yes.
That's for those of you who don't know, that's a 30-year running
Yes.
event
Super cool.
that all these guys in Scramblers drive across the country.
And it's
they
not
pick
just
different
the pretty
locations.
ones either. There's
No.
wheeling Scramblers.
Oh yeah.
There's modified Scramblers.
Well, the
there's
Scrambler
stock
was
ones.
the ugly duckling that was so ugly only a mother could love
Yeah.
at that time. It only became iconic in the last 20 years.
And the same way, I joined every GS Suzuki vintage motorcycle group that I could find.
Yes.
And then life happens, and you have
so much life.
You have both of us have little boys, and then suddenly priorities change, and then you move, you change around, you get shoved in the corner.
So how long was this bet running?
Over 10 years.
Yeah, over 10 years.
I'm gonna say our boys are 10
Yep.
at this point. And I looked at this motorcycle. I still like it, on a shelf for a long time, and I just piled stuff around it while I built CJ7s and worked on Gremlins and worked on other things and started building
tons
36.
Tons of built vehicles.
And I always said, someday when I get old, I will finish that, and it's never for sale until it's not. And the crazy part is, at this point, the only thing he has left of a Scrambler is basically a couple of parts, but he still owns those parts.
Yes.
I-
like a couple, literally, folks, like
parts.
a couple parts.
Yeah.
A whole vehicle hasn't existed. in
You have a
years.
title.
No, I wouldn't just say that, but he's got a couple pieces.
There are a
of
couple
it,
pieces.
and maybe some paperwork with it. But I finally sold mine over the weekend to someone to appreciate it. Thank God, because it's old. Old Scott did not make anything stock. It is not stock by any stretch of the imagination. It's got a 1,000 motor, 1,100 suspension, all that other kind of stuff. And you know what makes a challenge to sell something when it's that modified?
Yes,
because you
gotta
got to find the
right
guy
buyer.
that wants those modifications, just like when the 350 gets shoved in the 4-cylinder Scrambler.
Yeah.
So I want to congratulate Neil in finally winning that, and I am so thankful I have space back after almost 11 years.
So my contention is, who really won that bet?
We both did.
We both.
I was gonna say, you came out pretty far ahead because of it.
Yes.
Well, I've sold off parts and pieces over the years to honestly support the business.
Yep.
And I still have the capacity
To build a Scrambler.
to build a Scrambler.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm going to. I kind of it's actually one of those things, like, looking back on that, and it's amazing again how these go back to the restorative processes. You go, hey, that was really important to me at one time.
Yep.
And now my priorities have shifted, and
Yes.
I like a Scrambler. I still kind of want to scratch that itch because I have the 6, because I've had the Unlimited.
Oh yeah. A collection is fun.
That collection
I've been there.
concept is fun, but the ability to just be able to kind of hit the key and drive it
Yep.
is also advantageous.
Which is why you're driving an LJ.
Which is why I'm driving the LJ currently, and have this iconic tunned out Jeep that I can just get in, hit the key, and take my kids to school, or go exploring over the weekend, and that kind of stuff. So there are ups and downs in any of these processes. So I suppose by technical default I won the bet. It was never really anything too tremendous
there's no
on the line.
prize.
No, just bragging rights. Just bragging rights. All right, folks, this was a fun one. No podcasting next week, but definitely tune in September to see what we've catch up with us in the last couple weeks of shenanigans. Otherwise, check us out on the Book of Faces for your live updates from Jeffrey. Those will still be happening, and our vlog on YouTube, which is just increasing in popularity. Thank you to everybody who's helping spread the word on the Big International. It's for sale. Super cool truck. It's going to make somebody very happy. And if you need us in the meantime, you can hit us up on our text only number 440-855-2100. Very helpful, because a lot of people want to be daydreaming about Jeeps while you're at work, and you don't want to have that conversation out loud, so just text us. Or you can message us as well on Facebook Messenger. Until then, have a great week and Jeep on.
Jeep on.
Jeep on.